surged by almost 3%. The futures is up 73 points at the moment, to 5,701. So that takes a very good start to our markets for the last trading day of the week. Price of gold is up 83 cents US an ounce right now, $1,200 and $32.43 US an ounce. For crude oil, $80.14. West Texas Intermediate crude, $67.15. The Australian dollar down against all the major currencies this morning. It's currently worth 70.7 US cents. 55 British cents, 52 euro cents. 79 Japanese yen, and $1.80 New Zealand. Now, with the support the Royal State in basketball, the Brisbane Boys won their second win of the NBL season with a 102-96 victory over the ladder-leading Perth Wildcats.
Oh, what two?
18 points, while Tarico White was the Wildcats' best player with 19. Brisbane coach Andre Lamana says he was proud of his side's attitude.
A lot about as a group is bringing us mental energy and focus that then translates into a physical intense and trying to get on the front foot both defensively and offensively dictate the terms of the game.
In women's soccer, Sydney FC has claimed bragging rights in the W League season opening game after thrashing crosstown rivals Western Sydney Wanderers 3-0. The side loser dominated the Wanderers. Caitlin Ford scored 2 goals. Sydney FC and Matilda star Lisa Devana says after a number of former teammates had crossed over to the Wanderers, it was always going to be a tough affair.
Well, it was going to be a physical affair, so we also said, you know, do not use that kind of pride and just play football, because if we play our football, we can do some damage, and obviously in the first half and a bit of the second half, we saw the practice of what we can do.
In Europa League soccer, Arsenal remains on top of it. Sporting Lisbon, Danny Welbeck scored the winner in the 77th minute. Chelsea has defeated Bate Borisov 3-0 with Ruben Loftus-Cheek scoring a hat-trick. The Adelaide Crows will make their integrity manager a full-time position, admitting it has some regrets over the controversial pre-season collective mind training camp. The AFL has completed its investigation of the Gold Coast pre-season camp and decided the club did not break any industry rules. Crows CEO Andrew Fagan says he accepts that elements of that camp could have been managed better.
This sort of camp probably won't be part of our agenda, but you live and learn, and so again, I think everyone acknowledges that we went into 2018 with regards to this particular camp with really positive intentions, and the players acknowledge that.
In Sheffield Shield cricket, Victoria starts day 2 on 3 for 101 after dismissing New South Wales for 159. South Australia is on none for 39 after Queensland went all out for 231. 18-year-old leg spinner Lloyd Pope taking 7 wickets for the Redbacks. And Western Australia is 2 for 69, having bowled Tasmania out for 226. In women's tennis, after exiting the WTA finals in Singapore overnight, Caroline Wozniacki has revealed that she's been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. The 28-year-old has had an autoimmune condition since Wimbledon. She says she's coping with it as best she can.
It's obviously not ideal for anybody, and you know, I think when you're a professional athlete, it's also not even more ideal, but at the end of the day, you know, you find a plan, you figure out what to do, you do your research, and thankfully there's
wait for you all
great
day.
things now that you can do to it and do about it, and you know, you just kind of move on from it and work through it and figure out how to deal with it and live with it, and you know, that's that.
Wozniacki lost to Ukraine's Elena Svitolina 5-7, 7-5, 6-3. Karolina Pliskova has defeated fellow Czech Petra Kvitova 6-3, 6-4. Brisbane Broncos coach Wayne Bennett and South Sydney's Anthony Seibold are set to trade places in the NRL, though not until the end of next season. Bennett has signed a 2-year deal with the Rabbitohs starting in 2020, but insists he wants to see out his contract with the Broncos in 2019. Brisbane will hold a board meeting early next week, which is expected to confirm Seibold as Bennett's successor. And we've got a big 36 hours of racing ahead of us at Moonee Valley in Melbourne. Tonight there's the Manikato Stakes. Sunlight, US Navy Flag and Kementari are among the favourites. And then tomorrow it's the Cox Plate. Winx is aiming to win the Weight for Age Classic for a 4th time in a row. Her co-owner, Debbie Kapitas, has spoken to ABC News Radio's Hoof on the Till and says she's as nervous as ever.
Definitely not calmer. That's the big tick. Not calm at all. Look, nervous and excited. And I've just been flabbergasted with the support we're getting this week, the people that want to know about it, the interviews I'm doing, and that's making me more nervous, if nothing else. It's just all sorts of emotions nearly every day.
I'll have more sport in half an hour. Thank you very much to Sam Wilkinson. It's already 25 degrees in Brisbane, going for a top of 36 degrees today. It's going to be hot and mostly sunny. Cloud clearing in Sydney to a maximum of 22 degrees, and it's going to be a sunny afternoon. Already in the city of Sydney, the temperature is 18. Mostly sunny too today. In Canberra, where it's on 15 degrees right now, the forecast top is going to be 25. It's going to be a cloudy Friday in Melbourne with a high of just 17 degrees. Already you're on 13 degrees. In Hobart, 10 degrees on the way to 17, mostly cloudy there. And for Adelaide, sunny and a top of 25 degrees to come. It's 14 degrees in Adelaide at the moment. It's also 14 degrees in Perth, a sunny day ahead with a top of 28. And in Darwin, partly cloudy today with a maximum of 34. You've already had 27 millimetres of rain since 9 o'clock yesterday morning. In Darwin now, it is 27 degrees. It's 9:15 Eastern Daylight Time. It's 9:45 in South Australia. 8:15 is the time in Queensland. In the Northern Territory, it's 7:45, and it's 6:15 in WA.
ABC News headlines.
City police bomb squad has removed a suspicious package from a Manhattan restaurant owned by the actor Robert De Niro. It's the latest in a string of suspect packages sent to senior figures and supporters of the Democrat Party. We'll hear from the New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio shortly. Here at home, a $5 billion fund to guard Australian farmers against future droughts will be at the heart of a federal government plan to be unveiled in Canberra today at the National Drought Summit. Grain Growers Association Chair Brett Hosking will join us in just a moment. And the Prime Minister Scott Morrison won't put a time frame on the removal of 6 children from Nauru, despite increasing public pressure from his own backbench to find a solution. Farmers, rural business leaders and state and federal government have now gathered together at a national summit in Canberra aimed at developing some long-term solutions to dealing with drought. The Prime Minister has already foreshadowed a $5 billion drought relief package to be unveiled at today's meeting. The National Farmers Federation wants a new agreement between Commonwealth and state governments to provide a national approach to drought preparation, response and recovery. It also wants a 150% tax incentive for agricultural insurance premiums. Grain Growers Association Chair, the Victorian Mallee farmer Brett Hosking, backs that move. He'll be at today's meeting and spoke to me earlier, saying first that recent rain had boosted spirits amongst some of his members.
I guess what it's done is it's been a good confidence building boost for all our growers. Just a reminder that it can rain. For those that got significant amounts, they'll be able to go out and manage that moisture and retain it in the soil and take advantage of it in next year's winter crop or possibly a summer crop that may come off. But we're certainly a long way ahead of a long way away from I guess a break to the drought and a change to the conditions. And for most growers, it'll be this time next year before they look at getting a decent return again, provided the crop next year is successful. And but the rain is still valuable and still appreciated by all growers, I'd say.
Let's concentrate on the summit that you're attending. Explain to us what is your idea for that insurance cover drought?
Yeah, look, we just think it's a really good opportunity when we're talking about drought. We need to talk about the here and now because people are doing it really tough out there, and we need to make sure there's measures in there that help them right now, and things like the household assistance program and that sort of thing. But we also feel like it's an opportunity to talk strategically about, all right, how do we manage farming in a changing climate? There is no doubt that what we're seeing, and this drought is evidence of it, that when we do get a dry season, they're particularly dry now. When we get a wet year, then they can be particularly wet, and that's the climate variability that we're living with. So I guess it's about enabling farmers tools that will help them manage that risk in their business, will help them adapt their farming practices to make them more resilient to these sort of fluctuations and events, and give them the ability, I guess, to manage their own businesses and enterprises so that, there's not quite this devastation when we do get these severe weather events.
So specifically, you're talking about a 150% tax-deductible agricultural insurance premium. Is that what I think?
Yeah, so multi-peril crop insurance, it's widely used overseas in Canada, the United States, and really successfully. It's come about in those countries through government subsidies, and it's got to the point that it's actually a very competitive market. It's a little bit like when you go to get your car insurance, and there's so many different providers, and there's so little between each of them, despite what they tell you in the cost of their premiums, because they know what the risks are. They're so well versed in it that they can push those margins down and be really competitive. What we have with multi-peril crop insurance in Australia is that the reinsurers don't know the risks well enough. They don't know the industry well enough. So what they'll do when they're setting premiums is they'll build in this real fatty sort of margin that just makes sure that, a bit like going to the casino, the house never wants to lose it. That's the way insurance companies work. So they want to make sure they've got a big enough margin there that regardless of the circumstances, they'll come out on top. So what we want is some sort of incentive. Under those conditions, no grower would make a commercial decision to invest in that type of product. So what we want to do is create the environment where growers will want to invest in those products, and then we'll get multiple players in. They'll get to know the market, they'll get to know the industry, and they'll start competing very aggressively against each other for that business and push those margins down. And all of a sudden, we'll find ourselves in a situation where we have this really viable commercial product that farmers will say, what, I'd be a fool not to protect myself for times of drought by using this product. And that's the environment we want to create. That's my vision for where we can go with this. So hopefully that we'll be able to talk to government. We'll be able to make something happen.
One final question to you. I've been a working journalist for more than 40 years now, and when drought comes and it's bad, there's always talk of drought proofing. It's almost cyclical, isn't it? Drought proofing is almost the holy grail. Are we making any progress towards that realistically?
That's exactly the reason why we need to be talking strategically, not just talking about the here and now and the addressing the symptoms. Yes, we need to care for those that are in need. It's the responsibility of all Australians that need to make sure that those that are doing it tough are looked after, and that's why we pay our taxes. That's what we trust our government to do. But also, I think when we are talking drought, it's what we do. We have these little bits of here and now conversations, and we forget about it until the next one comes along. Well, let's not make that mistake again this time. Let's put government on notice that we want a real strategic discussion. We want a government that's really thinking not just about an election next year, but thinking about the next 10 years, the next 20 years in this country, and the way we farm, the way we provide food to our people, the way we grow our economy. And let's have these real strategic discussions so that drought isn't quite the disruption that it is at the moment.
That's Brett Hosking, who's a Victorian barley farmer. He's also the chairman of the Grain Growers Association. He'll be attending that National Drought Summit, which is getting underway in Canberra right now. Let's take it out to the United States, where the New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has made a two-pronged appeal to Americans in the wake of the interception of a number of suspicious devices sent to prominent Democrats and their supporters. As the investigation continues, Mayor de Blasio advised New Yorkers and others to report any information they may have to police. He also made a broader appeal to a more civil political debate.
Clearly, it's an upsetting time, a time when there's been too much hatred and too much division in the air. And in that context, people can feel powerless. I want to remind people that everyone has an opportunity to play a positive and constructive role here. First of all, helping law enforcement. This is something that everyone can do. If you have any information at all that you think could help law enforcement to address the situation, share it with law enforcement immediately. Let them be the judges of the value of the information. Don't hold it back. So many times, and I agree with the commissioner, law enforcement ultimately has proven they will find the perpetrators, but so many times it's because an individual, a citizen, stepped forward with information that really led to the key breakthrough. You have information, share it. If you're concerned about packages that could arrive at your home or your workplace, you see something that worries you, reach out to the police, get their involvement to address the situation. People can be part of solving this immediate challenge, but finally, we all can be a part of solving the bigger situation that we're facing as a society, as a nation. A tone of civility, a tone of mutual respect is something we all can create. We shouldn't just ask, what are the most prominent voices doing? We also have to ask the question, are all of us treating each other with respect? Treating men and women in law enforcement with respect, people in the media who report the news, treating them with respect. This is something that we all have to do as a way of addressing a crisis like this, and we can, and I have great confidence that we will.
That is the Mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, speaking earlier this morning. Let's stay in New York City because the death of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi is very much in the news at the United Nations, where a senior official says the critic of the Saudi government was the victim of an extrajudicial killing. In another development, the CIA Director Gina Haspel has reportedly been played a recording of the murder of the journalist, who vanished 3 weeks ago after visiting the Saudi consulate in the Turkish city of Istanbul. And there's news too that the journalist's son, who had been barred from leaving Saudi Arabia, is now on his way to the United States. That's confirmed by the US State Department. Al Jazeera's diplomatic correspondent James Bays has the latest development from UN headquarters in New York.
Well, this is coming from Agnes Callamand, who is the expert on this very issue. Her title is UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Summary or Arbitrary Executions. It's worth me explaining what, in international law, in UN terminology, an extrajudicial killing is. It's the killing of someone by a state taking place outside that state. Now, she's been giving evidence to the Third Committee of the United Nations, that's part of the General Assembly that deals with human rights issues. And afterwards, in the last hour, she gave a news conference, and I was pressing her at the news conference of her view of Saudi Arabia's culpability. And she's made a statement that certainly has not come from anyone at the UN before, and that is that in her view, as an expert on this issue, a legal expert and a human rights expert, that there were among the suspects that Saudi Arabia itself says that it is detaining, the top 15 suspects it has, key members of Saudi Arabia's elite, so high in the system of Saudi Arabia that in her view it amounts to an extrajudicial killing by Saudi Arabia. I followed up, what if the king didn't know? What if the Crown Prince didn't know? And she said that doesn't matter. If these were so senior figures, then those figures amount to being Saudi Arabia and making Saudi Arabia culpable for this killing. It's worth telling you, when she spoke earlier on in that committee meeting here in the United Nations, Saudi Arabia objected to some of the things she said. She said it was a gruesome killing. The Saudi representative who spoke said that she was inserting her own opinions and going beyond her remit, but she's made it clear this is exactly the sort of case that is the reason for her mandate within the United Nations. She's now calling for an independent and international investigation into what happened. She says she has no doubt that Saudi Arabia and Turkey may have some of the technical capabilities to do this, but she says this has become such an important international case, it needs to be investigated by an international body set up to investigate it.
And you've been listening there to James Bays, who's Al Jazeera's diplomatic correspondent at UN headquarters in New York. Japan in Focus takes a close look at significant political and social developments out of Japan and the region.
Japan in this aspect is actually trying to work out its own independent path.
Japan in Focus with Eleni Soltis.
Japan's readiness for disasters, which is excellent in terms of being ready for earthquakes. Now perhaps they need to start thinking about what happens when these things happen at the same time.
Sunday afternoon after the news at 1 o'clock Eastern on ABC News Radio or anytime on the ABC Listen app. Good morning now to Laidley Polton from the Australian Traffic Network.
Good morning, Steve. Up in Brisbane, Rothwell, eastbound Anzac Avenue near Morris Road, there's been an accident reported. We've also got a broken down truck in Burwood, westbound Parramatta Road at Burwood Road, in Neutral Bay, citybound Midstream Road at Wycombe Road, Piermont, citybound Western Distributor Anzac Bridge, and also through Burwood. We've got a bit of a nasty smash, which we've just mentioned, but Fairfield East not so much. Corner of Fairfield Street at Crown Street, traffic lights are flashing yellow there. Down to Canberra, a pretty good run all morning actually, so we'll go to Melbourne, and Dingley still dealing with that earlier smash, Westall Road near Spring Road, Campbell Field, Sydney Road at Barry Road, St Kilda Marine Parade at Shakespeare Grove has an accident there as well. Slow spots, the usual spots, Glen Iris, southbound Burke Road between Mulburn Road and High Street, and Kensington outbound Racecourse Road between Flemington Road and Smithfield Road. Now making your way across to Adelaide, and the parade at Buller Park has a smash causing delays for outbound traffic. Heavy delays too on Prospect Road near Bridgesea Road for roadworks, that's flowing citybound. And finally across to Perth, we are looking okay. I'm Laidley Polton, the latest national traffic.
Thank you, Laidley, and there'll be a further update on the traffic movements in our capital cities within the next half an hour. You're listening to Australia's All News Network. We're on air, online, on digital, also on your mobile. And Australian Eastern Daylight Time has just ticked over to 9:30. It is 9 o'clock in South Australia, 8:30 in Queensland. In the Northern Territory, it's 8 o'clock, and good morning in WA. Your time is 6:30.
ABC News.
The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, says redirecting funds to support drought resilience is money well spent. Mr Morrison is announcing a $5 billion fund at the National Drought Summit in Canberra today to support community services, research, technology and infrastructure. The money is coming from the Building Australia Fund, which at one stage was earmarked as a source of money for the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Mr Morrison says that money has been freed up.
Because as I announced when we got rid of the Medicare levy increase, that we're able to fully fund the National Disability Insurance Scheme out of the budget, and I made that announcement back prior to the budget. So this fund can now be fully dedicated to supporting the future resilience of Australia and Australian rural communities against drought.
And the Prime Minister is due to open that formally in the next few moments. We'll cross to that when and if we can. The former Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce is voicing frustration that a sexual harassment claim made against him continues to be used to tarnish his image. West Australian Catherine Marriott made a private complaint of sexual harassment against Mr Joyce earlier this year, prompting an internal party investigation. That complaint was later made public. The inquiry said that a final ruling on the veracity of the claim couldn't be made, and Mr Joyce has told RN's Fran Kelly it's unfair to keep raising the topic.
If I can't prove that you robbed a bank, doesn't mean ipso facto maybe you did.
No, but the finding of the initial party was that they couldn't find fault either
because
side.
There's nothing to find, Fran.
The federal opposition is renewing calls to extend the Banking Royal Commission, claiming victims of misconduct are facing lengthy court processes and aren't receiving adequate compensation. Royal Commissioner Kenneth Hayne delivered his interim report to the government at the end of September, but hasn't asked to extend his inquiry. Labor says there are many stories of banking misconduct that still need to be heard. The Shadow Financial Services Minister, Claire O'Neill, says there has been damning testimony about the unwillingness of the corporate watchdog to prosecute wrongdoing, which she says needs to be fully investigated.
And certainly we don't see anyone ever ending up in jail. You know, if you steal from a bank, you get prosecuted, you end up in jail. But it seems like if the bank steals from you, different rules apply, and that's one of the core issues here.
The federal government says it is pushing ahead with a bill aimed at stopping the erosion of superannuation funds through deductions and fees. Norman Hermont reports.
The government says it's working to get the numbers to pass the Protecting Your Super Package bill in the Senate next month. Assistant Treasurer Stuart Roberts says to prevent inactive and low balance accounts of less than $6,000 from being whittled away, under the bill they'll be consolidated by the Australian Tax Office.
It's the perfect organisation to actively reach out and say, hey, we've got some money, it's from this account, where do you want to put it?
The bill also caps administration charges on inactive and low balance accounts and eliminates super exit fees.
Authorities in the United States have stepped up their hunt for whoever is behind a series of crude bombs that have been sent to high-profile figures. Police say that 2 more packages have been intercepted, one to the former Democratic Vice President Joe Biden and another to a New York restaurant owned by the actor Robert De Niro. BBC's Samira Hussain is in New York.
We still don't know who is behind this or why. Remember, the investigation is still very early. There now have been a total of 10 of these packages sent since Monday, and the law enforcement officials have really only labeled 4 of them as pipe bombs, and only 1 has actually been destroyed. So it just gives you a sense of just how much more testing needs to be done on all of these packages.
The CIA Director Gina Haspel has reportedly been played a recording of the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. She'll brief the White House later on the contents of the audio, as North America correspondent Connor Duffy reports.
There are no current credible threats to any individuals, organizations, or locations here in New York.
Saudi Arabia has again changed its explanation for the murder of Mr. Khashoggi inside its consulate in Istanbul. After initially claiming he left the consulate alive, then claiming the death came from a fight, State TV now says it was premeditated murder. The confession came as CIA Director Gina Haspel returned from Turkey. US media is reporting she heard a recording of the murder believed to have been made by Turkish authorities. Connor Duffy, ABC News, Washington.
The super typhoon Yutu has killed at least 1 person on the northern Mariana Islands in the Pacific Ocean. The islands belong to the United States, making Yutu the strongest storm to hit any part of the United States this year. The super typhoon has caused significant damage, and residents are now facing months without electricity or running water. Officials say that the territory will need significant help to recover from the storm. In New South Wales, pharmacists will now be allowed to give vaccines to people as young as 16 in a bid to increase vaccination rates across the state. Angelique Liu reports.
After a successful program allowing pharmacists to give flu vaccines over the winter, health authorities are expanding the program to include vaccinations for diphtheria, whooping cough, measles and rubella. Health Minister Brad Hazzard says the program will give people options.
Particularly in some regional areas, there just are no GPs available. But also, there's a group of people, particularly younger adults, who don't have a GP and just aren't having their vaccinations.
16-year-olds will now be allowed to get vaccinations from pharmacies under the program. New South Wales Health says it will start in January next year.
A $1 million reward is being offered for information about a cold case in the New South Wales Central West, Claudia Jambor reports.
As a teenager, Jessica Small disappeared 21 years ago today. She was 15 at the time. Police say she had been at an arcade game centre with a female friend, then tried to hitchhike home and was picked up and assaulted by a male driver. Officers say her friend escaped, but Jessica was never seen again. A coronial inquest ruled the case a homicide, and in 2015, a $100,000 reward was offered for information about what happened. That amount has been increased to $1 million today on the 21st anniversary of her disappearance.
WA police are investigating a suspicious death in Perth North overnight after a man was killed in what's believed to have been a fight with a family member. Emergency services were called to a house at Joondalup about 12:30. Homicide squad and Joondalup detectives are investigating. A number of people are assisting police with inquiries. The survey of the nation's teachers and principals has revealed growing disaffection with NAPLAN testing in schools. Almost 8,000 teachers and principals took part in the Australian Education Union's State of Our Schools survey. 85% of teachers say they didn't believe NAPLAN was effective as a diagnostic tool. AEU Acting President Murray Mulheron says the figures are concerning.
Certainly concern of the profession over many years that NAPLAN is a very blunt instrument that does not tell teachers what they need to know about how students are progressing.
US stocks have climbed back this morning after a massive sell-off on the day previous, with strong earnings encouraging investors to venture into risky bets again, while the US dollar gained on the euro. Oil prices were bolstered by the rebound in equities markets, and as Saudi Arabia's energy minister signalled major producers may need to intervene in crude markets to support prices. The see how the main figures ended the day in New York. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 401 points, that's 1.6%, to a close of 24,985. The S&P 500 gained 49 points, or 1.8%, to 2,706. And the Nasdaq Composite added 210 points, or nearly 3%, to a close of 7,318. All that is likely to flow through to our market, which is due to come on stream in about half an hour, and it looks as though it'll be a very good start to the last trading day of the week. The SPI 200 index is on 5,701, that's up 73 points. Tapis crude oil price is $80.14. West Texas Intermediate crude, $67.15. The price of gold right now is up 39 cents US an ounce to $1,231.99. The Australian dollar is buying 70.8 US pence, 55 British pence, 62 euro cents, 79.5 Japanese yen, and $1.08 New Zealand. Time now for the sports news. Here's Sam Wilkinson.
Thank you, Steve. And we'll start with A-League soccer. Melbourne City coach Warren Joyce says no one is getting ahead of themselves following a round one win over Melbourne Victory. City defeated their crosstown rivals 2-1 in last Saturday's derby. Their next assignment is an away game against the Central Coast Mariners tomorrow. Joyce says there are plenty of games to go in this A-League campaign.
You know, it's just one game. This season's a long slog. You know, we've been the same with every game that we've played. I would say the disappointment of the West Sydney game in the Cup was more noticeable than any highs that we might have from winning any of the games so far.
Caitlin Ford has scored twice to give Sydney FC a 3-0 win over the Western Sydney Wanderers in the W-League season opener. It was a dominant performance from the Sky Blues, Chloe Legazzo scoring the game's other goal. Ford has told Fox Sports it was just the start to the season she needed.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I've been lacking a bit of confidence in my finishing, so definitely feels nice to start off with 2 goals.
Chelsea has defeated Bate Borisov in the Europa League this morning. Ruben Loftus-Cheek scored a hat-trick for the English Premier League side. Arsenal enjoyed a 1-0 win over Sporting Lisbon thanks to Danny Welbeck's 77th minute score. It puts the Gunners on top of their group and 3 points clear of the Portuguese side. It's something manager Unai Emery is very pleased about.
For us it's very important because we want to finish first in this group, and at the moment the another team who is with us is Sporting de Portugal.
In rugby league, the NRL coaching merry-go-round has ramped up with reports New Zealand coach Michael Maguire has agreed to sign a 3-year deal with West's Tigers. Tim Wharton reports.
Maguire, who's been in charge of New Zealand, has been looking to return to the NRL after coaching South Sydney from 2012 till 2017, including a premiership in 2014. The signature on a 3-year deal with the Tigers is expected within the next few days, with the Tigers in the process of working out a release for current coach Ivan Cleary to join Penrith to work with his son and star halfback Nathan. Brisbane coach Wayne Bennett is also on his way out after next season after signing a 2-year deal with South Sydney. 68-year-old will take charge of the Rabbitohs for the 2020 and 2021 seasons, while South's coach Anthony Seibold is set to take over the Rabbitohs after 2019 after he refused to sign a contract extension with Rabbitohs.
The Brisbane Bullets have clinched an upset 4-point win at home over the Perth Wildcats in the National Basketball League. Cameron Bairstow top scored for the Bullets with 18 points as they won 100-96. This was the second time these sides had met in a week. The Wildcats won last Saturday. Bullets coach Andre Lamanis says the players adjusted their game accordingly to reverse the result this time around.
Yeah, we spoke during the week that we thought in the Perth game over there that we were on the back foot too much and allowed them to play as they wanted to play. And the guys made a really nice adjustment tonight. They're coming out and playing, how we want to play, regardless of how the game went. I would have been proud of that performance tonight. Just because of the way that they came out. I thought we did a nice job executing stuff that we'd spoken about over the last couple of days.
Heading into day 2 of the Sheffield Shield cricket after dismissing New South Wales for 159, Victoria resumes on 3 for 101. South Australia starts the day on none for 39 after Queensland were dismissed for 231. 18-year-old leg spinner Lloyd Pope putting forward his case for national selection with figures of 7 for 87. And Western Australia will begin on 2 for 69 after Tasmania went all out for 226. And the countdown continues to tomorrow's Cox Plate at Moonee Valley Racecourse in the $5 million Wage for Age Classic.
Despite all the success, it seems not everyone's convinced at Winx's greatness, with UK racing broadcaster Matt Chapman arguing earlier this week the view back in Britain was the quality of horses Winx has beaten over the years isn't much. However, Winx's co-owner Debbie Kapitas has told ABC News Radio's Hawk on the Till that she thinks Chapman is just stirring things up.
Absolutely that way. You know, here he is, he's wanting us to all talk about everything to highlight how good she is, which is perfect. But look, she can only beat who she's up against. And if they think they're second-raters, well, why aren't more of them coming out here to win our riches? It's competition. We want competition. It's exciting to have good horses racing against us.
So there's the Cox Plate tomorrow, and there's also the Manikato Stakes also at Moonee Valley tonight, so a lot to look forward to in racing this weekend, Steve.
Absolutely. Sam Wilkinson at the Sports Desk. Will be a further update from him in around about 25 minutes. Now to the weather for the capital cities today, Friday the 26th of October. It is 26 degrees now in Brisbane, on the way to a top of 36. It's going to be hot today and mostly sunny as well. Cloud clearing in Sydney and a sunny afternoon ahead with a high of 22. At the moment in Sydney it's 19. In the national capital right now, the temperature is 17 degrees, a mostly sunny day ahead with a top of 25. 15 degrees in Melbourne and 17 later. It's now cloudy today in Melbourne. 11 degrees in Hobart is the temperature right now. A mostly cloudy day ahead with a top of 17. It's 16 degrees at the moment in Adelaide. Sunny there and a top of 25 to come. Also sunny today in Perth with a top of 28, now 15, and partly cloudy conditions in Darwin, 28 degrees at the moment, on the way to 34. We're going to go to Canberra now. As mentioned, the Prime Minister is addressing the National Drought Summit there, and let's listen into some of his introductory remarks.
Challenges that they were dealing with here many years ago, and we will always deal with as an Australian nation, and we will always deal with in our state and territory jurisdictions, and we will always have those challenges. And so these conversations about drought, these decisions, these actions, this cooperation is no stranger to this chamber any more than it is a stranger to the chamber up the road. The only difference is I've noticed that the seats here are a little comfier than the ones that are up the other. I'll have a chat to the Speaker about that at another time. Maybe they needed a bit more extra padding here, Scotty, I don't know. But it's great to do it here in the nation's capital, Andrew, and we're very pleased, I think, to be here on this occasion. Dealing with drought, our changing climate and preparing for drought is a top priority of our government. I want to thank you for making arrangements with your families, with your businesses, with your workplaces, and of course with those on your farms that enabled you to travel here today and be part of this summit. Some of you are left behind incredibly difficult circumstances, and you know they will be there when you get back to them. The drought, which for some Australians I've visited, is easily the worst for them in living memory, and it's a long way from breaking. But the true spirit of Australians is not for breaking. And as I welcome you here today, I want to say that we acknowledge that tremendous resilience, because if the drought has reminded us of one thing, it is the indomitable spirit of Australians, and particularly rural and regional Australians, and the hope that they have in the future, and their commitment to ensuring the maintenance of a lifestyle that is being lived in this country for generations and generations. And indeed, as I acknowledge the Indigenous people of Australia, our care for our land, for our environment, it goes back 60,000 years and is a great heritage for us to pick up on. We trust that our mates will be there to help us when times are tough, in our days, in our weeks, in our months and years if necessary, if need, and in whatever it takes. Australians have been sticking together in tough times. It's in our DNA. And that's why, when I became Prime Minister, I announced the drought would be one of my highest priorities. And as we quickly went up to Quilpie with Major General Stephen Day, who I acknowledge today, and the Deputy Prime Minister, and Bridget McKenzie, and of course the Agriculture Minister, David Littleproud, that's what we saw. a great response, and with Scotty Buchholz to how the government was moving quickly to go and stand with people right across the country and in some of its worst affected areas. So welcome again to the summit. By bringing you together, we're seeking to get an overarching picture about where and what needs to continue to be done. The town, the community, farm pressure points, especially in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, but increasingly in South Australia and in other regions as the drought extends its reach. You are the stakeholders with the expertise, and there are many others beyond this place who we couldn't fit all in here today. And your field of vision is what we're looking for today. So please don't be backwards in coming forwards. We also need to ensure that we've got a good understanding of the support currently being delivered. So allow me to address those issues before us. Already there is more than $1.8 billion in assistance measures and concessional loans to support drought-affected farmers and communities. A lot is being done at the Commonwealth level, just as it is being done at the state and territory level. In terms of the Commonwealth, extending the farm household allowance from 3 to 4 years, a temporary increase in the farm household allowance asset threshold from 2.6 million to 5 million, and a new temporary FHA supplement of up to $12,000 for eligible farming couples per household, and up to $7,200 for eligible single farmers paid as 2 lump sum payments. Providing up to $72 million for a special drought round from the National Water Infrastructure Fund for water infrastructure in drought-affected areas, already out there. Increasing support for mental health with an additional $11.4 million to assist rural communities and communities impacted by drought, already out there doing that job. Investing in local infrastructure projects in drought-affected communities by boosting the Drought Communities Program by $75 million and providing support of $1 million to 60 eligible councils and shires in this financial year, right here, right now, to support the towns, to support the local regional economies. Additional support for producers and graziers to help manage pest, animals and weeds. Changing the rules so that primary producers can immediately deduct, rather than depreciate over 3 years, the cost of fodder storage assets such as silos and hay sheds used to store grain and other animal feed, making it easier for farmers to invest in and stockpile fodder. And cutting red tape, a really simple thing. For truckies carting hay, longer and higher loads of hay and fodder will be allowed to travel on state and nationally controlled roads, and that was a partnership exercise with states and territories to just deal with one of the frustrating inconveniences that was just getting in the way of getting the feed to the farm. Now that $1 million for councils in a drought-affected area is there is to help stimulate rural and regional communities with local infrastructure and other projects, community infrastructure, construction projects, road upgrades, water infrastructure, community events, dog fences, whatever the need happens to be. And on top of this, we have announced another $15 million worth of grants, as we did yesterday, to be dispersed to not-for-profits in drought communities through the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal, which I'm sure the former Governor-General has a keen interest in being involved in that organisation. As all these applications come in, we need to ensure they are targeted and coordinated, because a local economy that is kept ticking supports not only farmers, but it also helps the hairdresser, as Barney reminds us, the mechanic, the supermarket, to remain open in these towns, and those services can continue to be delivered. But there's a lot more work to do, as we know. And in bringing you together today, farmers, businesses, charities, banking and financial services, all levels of government, this summit is an opportunity to go even further with additional measures for relief, for recovery and for resilience for the drought. That's why today I'm announcing a package of significant new initiatives as part of our government's ongoing drought response. First, the Future Drought Fund. and recovery. It's about helping farmers and their communities to prepare and adapt to the impact of drought. Through the fund, the government will draw down $100 million a year for projects, research and infrastructure to support long-term sustainability. It will operate very similar to the Medical Research Fund, which was established by the government some years ago. So to establish a base of capital, to see that capital base expand up to $5 billion, but at the same time drawing down on the earnings of that fund to ensure we can invest in these ongoing projects. This is about putting money away for a non-rainy day in the future and continuing to do it for the non-rainy days that extend out. And there is no time to waste. We will begin operating that fund as soon as we're able to pass the legislation through the Parliament. Because we know that drought is not just felt on the farm. When spending dries up in regional towns, it threatens the prosperity of local businesses and the families who run them. So we're bringing this sport in to boost local economies and improve business confidence as well. I'm also announcing today an extension of the Drought Communities Program. And in addition to that, the fund, I've announced the Future Fund, I'm announcing that the program will be extended from 60 to 81 local governments and shires in drought-hit areas, giving each of these communities $1 million to stimulate their local economies. So an extra 21 shires will be supported by that program. This will bring the total commitment to this program to $81.15 million. And we have listened to farmers, their communities and their representatives in responding in this way, and this has been a key issue that has been fed back through Bridget McKenzie and Major General Day. It's also imperative, as we know, to help as much as we possibly can with the mental health issues that accompany the devastation and loss that comes with drought. So I'm announcing today a further $15.3 million in mental health initiatives, including $11 million to expand services at the six existing primary health networks subject to drought, and adding 2 new private primary health networks which are part drought affected. This goes on top of course, the additional funds that we recently announced for Headspace, which included more than $10 million focused on delivering Headspace services remotely in rural and regional communities. I'm also announcing today that we're going to take some of the pressure off farmers and their families by helping them to keep food on the table, pay their bills and meet their basic